What's up, Packer fans? Welcome to another episode of Titletown Talk. I'm your host, Ian Ewing, and welcome to a Victory Monday. What a dominating performance by our Green Bay Packers. They show us here in week one. They show up with their piss hot as a fire pit in the summer and blow out the defending NFC North champion Detroit Lions. Boy, oh boy, I'm still in awe at what I witnessed in that game, guys. It's it's easy to be hyperbolic, and it's really easy to overreact when you have a game like that in week one. There was, all the buildup over a long off season, so much excitement coming off of the Micah trade. It all culminates in a convincing victory where we saw our Green Bay Packers dominate on defense, be what I would call efficient as hell on offense, and most importantly, they completely out-physicaled the Detroit Lions, who are built on being physical. So we have yet to see the Vikings and the Bears. That should be pretty interesting tonight to watch. It's funny because I kind of call these games like this hate watching, but there's like a lot of players on both teams that I really like, which I hate to admit. So anyway, regardless, the win yesterday catapults the Packers to being the new favorites in the North. I think regardless of what happens tonight in that game, the Packers are probably going to be the favorite in the North, whether they should be or not. I said it before. We don't want to overreact necessarily to week one. We'll talk about that shortly. But I would also say that they're probably the biggest threat to the Eagles now in the NFC. So let's talk about the players of the game before we break down the offense. These are my players of the game. We'll start with Jordan Love. I thought in this game we saw the 2023 version of Jordan Love, the one that we talked about in the offseason, the one that we talked about on the Bold Predictions episode. He was extremely efficient in this game. He spread the ball around. There were 10 different receivers that got a catch. And really outside of probably 2 or 3 throws, I would say 3, that he'd like to have back, I thought his accuracy was really, really good as well. Better than any point last season consistently. There were obviously throws in some games that looked really good. But I was very impressed with Jordan yesterday. Like I said in the offseason when I started this podcast, so back in January of this year, Jordan deserves some blame for last season and not taking the step that we thought he would. But, in large part, outside of the injuries, the inconsistency from the receivers and the fact that they didn't take a step forward last year, that was what really caused the inconsistent play that we saw from him outside of the injuries, like I said. In this game, Detroit, they played a ton of man coverage like I kind of thought they would. We talked about it in the preview episode. I'm going to reference the preview episode quite a bit today, that the receivers need to step up and get separation in this game. And Detroit started out early and often playing a lot of man coverage, and the Packers were able to take advantage of it. They were for the most part, the receivers were where they were supposed to be as far as we know, watching the tape. They only had 1 drop, which was a bad one. I'll get to that later. I just really felt that the passing game all along was really, really in rhythm. They felt a lot more, like I said, like that 2023 version of the offense that got all the way to the divisional round and should have beaten the 49ers. I thought the offensive line protected Jordan really, really well. They did it so well that the Lions were forced to blitz a lot. And I thought that was kind of what would happen. And when they did, Jordan made them pay, just like he did in 2023, right? That was the approach that a lot of teams took against him in 23, even when they were playing well. Blitz, 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 right? Against the blitz yesterday, Jordan was 9 for 11 with 139 yards and a touchdown, which, again, insane, right? One of my bold predictions for the season was that Jordan was going to come in and be an MVP finalist and be in that conversation all year long. If he keeps playing like this, I believe that prediction will come true. The next player, Colby Wooden, defensive tackle. My God, there was a lot of conversation about the loss of Kenny Clark and the impact that it would have on the run defense specifically, which, again, I do think was warranted to some degree. But, man, Colby Wooden came in. He said, I got something to say about that. And he had a phenomenal game here. He was really, really disruptive in the run game. He did have a very important pressure on Jared Goff as well. He had that really awesome stop on the 1-yard line after Micah Parsons essentially took a double team, and Colby Wooden was left one-on-one with Jahmyr Gibbs in the hole on the 1-yard line, and he was able to stop him. I don't remember if it was Gibbs or Montgomery, but either way, I thought Wooden played really, really well in this game. We heard through camp how well he had played from people who were paying attention to the defensive line, and they said Wooden had made quite a jump in his game. LaFleur said it, so did Goody. We saw it in this game, right? And have to say that was really, really encouraging considering where we're at. Remember, Colby Wooden was an edge player. I don't remember what college he played for, but in college he was an edge player. He had a really high RAS score coming out. The Packers picked him in the 4th round. I thought that was a little bit rich for that. I hadn't really done a lot of research on Colby Wooden, but he put on all this weight to become essentially a nose tackle, despite the fact that he played edge in college. So again, you have to be really, really encouraged with what you saw from our boy, Colby Wooden. Lucas Van Ness, man, had 4 pressures in this game. He had a half sack. But more importantly, he was insanely good in the running game in this game. He held the edge really, really well. There was one of those stops, I think it was for like a 2-yard loss. I believe LVN was in on that one. He had that insane bull rush on Christian Mahogany that led to the first sack of the game on Goff. He had a couple pressures on Taylor Decker, who, in my opinion, is one of the best left tackles in the game. I thought this was one of LVN's best games as a pro. Probably was his best game as a pro. And, we'll talk about it in a minute, but thanks in large part to the impact that Micah Parsons had, right? This is a small preview of what it's going to look like all year with Micah, right? He's going to be getting all the attention. LVN and Gary, they're going to get a lot of one-on-ones this year. So are the interior guys, Carl Brooks and Colby Wooden. Rashawn Gary had a phenomenal game too, right? He had 1.5 sacks in this one. He had, I believe, 4 pressures. We'll talk about the pressure numbers in a bit. I do have those in my notes here. We'll go over them in a bit. But again, ton of pressure on Taylor Decker as well. Have to be really, really encouraged with LVN in this one. And if you guys didn't catch the post-game interview with Micah, I would go watch it. He talks a lot about how, he's going to take LVN under his wing this year, and he thinks that LVN can be like Julius Peppers good. He mentioned Julius Peppers' name. No, that's not going to happen. But, I do think that LVN, we're going to see a breakout from him this year, which was, again, in my bold predictions. You guys know I'm high on this take, and it only got more real after they brought in Micah. Romeo Doubs had a great game. We're going to talk about him later. I did get a fan question, LOL, fans of this podcast. Friend messaged me about Romeo Doubs. We'll talk about that at the very end. All we heard in the offseason was the Packers, they don't have a number 1 wide receiver and how bad they need one. And then again, we hear, he's kind of like the camp superhero every year. If you guys remember in 2022 when Rodgers was here, he was tearing it up in camp and everyone was talking about how great he was going to be, right? And, he had a good rookie season. 2023, he took a step forward for sure. I thought last year he was pretty mid overall. Obviously, he dealt with the injury, the concussion that he had. He also had the suspension where he didn't show up for practice, right? I think in this game we saw a different Romeo Doubs. And remember, he's in a contract year. You guys know I picked Dontavian Wicks to be the breakout player. We obviously picked Matthew Golden in the first, who was my favorite player in the whole draft. I won't go into that again. You guys know how high I am on him. I do think that, Doubs said, don't forget about me in this game. I thought he played really, really well. He had a couple plays where he got wide ass open. There was that deep shot that he won on Terrion Arnold. And Terrion Arnold's a really good athlete, by the way. We just haven't really seen Romeo do a lot of winning deep in the pros. He's been what I would call pretty average in terms of going deep. But when he was in college, guys, he was really strong at running deep. He obviously he's a pretty good athlete. He's got some twitch to him. He's really fast laterally, of course, too. He just hasn't really been asked to win deep very much in the pros, but he did a lot in college. And I do think that, if this is what we can expect this season, that's really, really exciting. Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker all together. I'm going to just bring these two together. They both played out of their mind in this one. I mentioned in the preview episode about how important it would be for these linebackers to step up with losing Kenny Clark, and boy, did they. Edgerrin Cooper, we'll start with him. He played out of his mind in this game. If you guys do the rewatch, just watch Edgerrin Cooper on every single play. He's literally there on every single play. Even the pass plays where, they complete it short, he's on the other side of the field and he sprints over and he gets a hit on those plays, right? He had a couple TFLs. He was just flying around the field this entire game, right? These two together, and by the way, this is crazy. They combined for 21 tackles. I think they had 14 solo tackles between the two of them, which is crazy. They were literally everywhere all at once in this game. We talked a lot about how inconsistent Quay Walker has been, and I think that, very few people would argue that. But in the middle of last season, I mentioned it on a previous episode, he looked like a different player. There was that Bears game, the first Bears game, where he played one of the worst games I've ever seen a linebacker play. And guys, we've had some bad linebackers on this team in the last, 15 years? And you guys know how high I am on Edge Cooper, right? These two together did a phenomenal job in this game. Edgerrin Cooper, again, I think he's going to be an all-pro this season, and I think it's pretty well, a lot of people are saying the same thing is what I'm trying to say. And he did nothing to dissuade that opinion in this game. Yes, Micah Parsons as well. Obviously, everyone's talking about him. I saw on Reddit today, my wife actually pointed this out to me, that there was a Bears fan spouting off about how Micah didn't even have a good game. The guy said something to the effect of, hey, good job, Micah got 1 sack and they're paying him $160 million, whatever. It's like, dude, if you watch this game and you don't think Micah Parsons made an impact on this game, you don't know what you're watching. And again, you can watch NFL football casually as a fan. I think you should. I don't think everyone needs to be a nerd about this stuff. But when you make these sweeping statements and you make these, what I would call bold takes, like at least have some idea what you're looking at. You cannot watch this game with any knowledge of football and not think that Micah had a massive impact in this game, right? Again, you have to be able to see, what kind of impact this dude has. When he was on the field, the Lions averaged 2.66 yards per play. That is crazy. That's pathetic. And it's not all because of Micah, but it has a massive impact with him. Run defense. This was his big, everybody was freaking out about how, his run defense was going to be bad. And this was, Jerry Jones putting his foot in his mouth, taking it out of his butt, by the way, and saying, we really wanted to improve our run defense. That's why we got rid of Micah Parsons. When Micah was on the field, the Lions rushed for -2 yards on 7 carries. So we could basically shoot that to the moon. That's not a thing. He is a good run defender. The Cowboys didn't ask him to be a good run defender. That's why. Pressure numbers were a bit different, but depending on where you looked, I saw that he had 4 pressures. I have the numbers in here. I haven't raked through them yet. We'll look at the PFF numbers in a bit. But first pressure that he did an inside move on Penei Sewell and schooled him. That resulted in a really rushed throw from Jared Goff, and it resulted in a 2-yard loss, bring up a 4th down. The other one, the most impressive one of the whole game, was the one, I think it was in the second quarter. The Lions were driving down, and it was the Evan Williams interception. He took an inside move on Sewell again. And guys, when I say that he is fast, and we'll talk about his sack in a minute, right? He is so fast, but it's not just that he's fast. His acceleration when he wins is unbelievable. Like as soon as he beats the guy, he's in the backfield in a flash, right? And this happened in this one. Penei Sewell is the best right tackle in football. Let's be clear. Yes, he's better than Lane Johnson. He's really, really, really good. And Micah Parsons made him look bad on that one. He got in the backfield in a hurry after he beat Sewell on the inside. Jared Goff throws it up. Evan Williams makes the insane interception, right? He had the sack in the 4th quarter where he essentially got, he rammed through a double team, got through and sprinted at full sprint and caught Jared Goff from behind. Next Gen Stats had him at 18 miles an hour on that rush, which is, again, for a guy who is 250 pounds playing edge, that's insane. He did only play 29 snaps, but again, I think we already talked about the impact he had in the 29 snaps, but what we don't see on the stat sheet is the way that he took on double teams. Again, when he's on the field, guys, you can't beat him just by leaving your guy one-on-one with him. Not consistently. He's going to end up beating your guy at some point. You're going to have to double team him. You're going to have to chip him. You're going to have to give him attention at all times. When you do that, that leaves the other guys free at one-on-one. And the other guys in this game took full advantage of that. So again, insane game from Parsons, playing only 29 snaps. I think and remember guys, he's out of shape right now too. So this is the worst he's going to look all season. So again, massively encouraging for Micah. Again, big fan of his. Maybe I'm being a bit of a homer here, but I think we should all be really excited from what we saw from Micah Parsons in this game. Honorable mention to Darian Kennard. He played right tackle when Zach Tom got hurt in the 3rd quarter, I believe, after the interception that wasn't, where he essentially Aiden Hutchinson threw Jordan Love into Zach Tom's legs. Kennard came off the bench in this game, and I thought he did really, really well. Number 70, if you guys don't know who he is. We didn't get to talk about him on the podcast. I don't know why I didn't bring this up. Depth on the interior of the offensive line was pretty concerning because, Jacob Monk didn't play well in the preseason. Neither did Donovan Jennings, who was inactive in this game, by the way. And instead of Goody, leaning on young guys, quote unquote, he went and traded a 6th-round pick next year to the Eagles for Darian Kennard. So again, it was smart because, again, the Eagles have a really deep offensive line, and they plucked him from that Eagles offensive line. I believe he was slated to be the 6th lineman, so swing tackle. He can play guard too. Again, I cannot tell you guys how impressive it was for him to come in the game like this and actually play well against that, against Aiden Hutchinson. He had a couple really, really important run blocks, and I think he gave up one pressure in the end, but I was really impressed with how he stepped in essentially crunch time because they needed him to play well. I'll just make a really quick statement. Again, if you guys aren't a fan of Goody's drafts, I think you're misguided, to say the least. I think that you can massively criticize his first few drafts, specifically like 2021 and even 2020. You can give us some crap for 2020, even though he drafted Jordan Love, but the 21 draft was absolute trash, right? We can criticize his drafting, but when he makes a play for a pro personnel guy, they typically win these bets more often than not. And I think it was Andy Herman who said this, the Pack-A-Day podcast. He said, yeah, if Goody's calling about one of your players, maybe you should take a second look before you trade him because clearly they know something that you don't. So let's get into PFF's grades really quick. Top graded player on the Packers was Evan Williams at safety, 90.5. That's a elite grade for them. Devontae Wyatt, and by the way, Evan Williams, he could have been in my player of the game as well. On rewatch, I watched the All-22. I think I watched half of it this morning, and he did play a really, really good game in this one. And again, if Evan Williams can play elite football aside from Xavier McKinney, that's going to give this defense a whole other element, right? No one's going to be able to throw deep on these guys. Devontae Wyatt, 78 grade. Edgerrin Cooper was 77.6. Carrington Valentine at 72.8. And Lucas Van Ness at 68.7. So again, all above average grades on defense for those guys. On offense, Jordan Love was the top rated offensive player at 76. He was credited with 4 big-time throws in this game, which, if you guys don't know what big-time throws are, if you want to look it up after this, you can look it up in a bit more detail, but it basically means like if it was a really difficult throw and it was completed or not completed, you get credit for a big-time throw. And this was he never had 4 in a game the entire year last year. I think the last time he had it was against the Chiefs in 2023 in that amazing stretch. Number 2 on the offense, Dontavian Wicks. I thought he got open the entire game. There were a couple times where he was wide ass open and Jordan didn't look his way. You have Romeo Doubs making the big play deep. He was number 3 on the Packers at 74.6. Jordan Morgan was 73.5 and Sean Ryan 73.3. So again, a couple of linemen there that ended up being in the top 5 on PFF. Let's talk about the offense overall. They had 266 total yards, which, that's not very good. It was their fewest since 2019 when they opened against the Bears, and that was the famous Aaron Rodgers game where he said, "We have a defense." They did not have a defense, unfortunately. Their defense was not bad that year, but let's not forget they gave up 1 million yards to the 49ers in the NFC Championship game that year. So let's not talk about that anymore. Time of possession was the big reason here why the Packers' numbers were really low, right? The Packers had the ball for only 25 minutes in the game. The Lions had it for 35 minutes. So again, that kind of explains why the numbers don't really match what our eyes saw in the game. The most impressive thing, by the way, the penalties in the game. The Packers obviously massively penalized last season, especially in those big games last year. They had 4 penalties for 40 yards, and one of them was that egregious taunting penalty, which, again, it's so funny because, I think Xavier McKinney got headbutted after that, and the Lions don't get a flag. The Packers get the flag. Absurd. They only had 1 drop on offense, too. Unfortunately, it was a big drop, right? It was that beautiful throw up the sideline from Jordan Love to Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed dropped it, inexplicably dropped it. He should have caught that ball. Now, it would have been a tough catch, right? It was contested, but, Jaden Reed has got great hands. There's no reason he shouldn't have caught that. As far as keys to the game, right, going into the game, one of them that I had said was that they need to run the ball. Even if it doesn't work, they need to keep pounding the ball. And I think it was really, really clear in this game that the Lions' game plan was to stop the run. They wanted to force Jordan to throw it, LOL. Josh Jacobs carried for 18 times for 66 yards. Nobody else really carried the ball. In the first half, right, there was some really bad run blocking. There were also a couple of runs where I thought Jacobs missed the cutback. I think it was the first drive. There was a play where John Fitzpatrick came on the backside and blocked. It was a zone blocking scheme. Had a wide-ass open hole there that he just didn't take, which I thought was weird. I thought the Lions linebackers played well. Derek Barnes and Jack Campbell blew up the game on at least in the first half in the running game. But overall, the second half, I thought they ran a lot better. Josh Jacobs didn't quit, right? 18 carries. That's kind of low for him. But they were able to put the game away late through the running game. He scored that late touchdown. Overall, I thought they did a pretty good job run blocking in the second half. The passing attack, though, in the first quarter, really the first half in general was lethal. I said it earlier. I knew the Lions were going to press the shit out of the Packers receiver, pardon my French, and they did so, right? They pressed. They did man coverage early. The key was Jordan had a lot of time to throw, and the receivers were able to win with regularity. So again, another key to the game was stopping Aiden Hutchinson. Did he even play in this game? LOL. I mentioned in the preview episode, if they could stop Aiden Hutchinson, there's no one else on that defensive line that scares me, right? And there were I saw this online, a couple of lunatic Lions fans. There was a guy, it was a YouTube video, came up in my algorithm. I listened to it, talking about how Marcus Davenport was going to tear it up this year and he was going to get 15 sacks or something, right? I don't know where in hell somebody would think he was going to be that good, right? But he was a complete non-factor, which we sort of called. DJ Reader, Tyleek Williams did nothing in the game. I thought I can't remember the guy's name. One of the Lions edge players did have a couple pressures on Jordan late in the game. But again, they did a really, really good job here of completely eliminating Aiden Hutchinson, right? Zach Tom had a lot of one-on-ones against him, and I thought he did really, really well. When he did get pressure, it was on the left side against Rasheed Walker. I thought he played a pretty good game, did give up 2 pressures. I believe they were both in the second half, and I do believe Aiden Hutchinson got one of them. But regardless, I think the offensive line at large was a key to this game in giving Jordan the time to throw that he needed. There were a couple, especially on that first drive. If you guys go back and watch that first drive, Jordan could have made freaking pancakes back there in the backfield. He had all day to throw. At no point in the game was pressure an issue, right? And we talked earlier about how it forced the Lions to blitz, and Jordan had really, really, really good numbers against the blitz in this game. Again, this is going to be how it goes all season long. This was a good Lions defense. Again, I just said how bad their defensive line was outside of Aiden Hutchinson, but they do have really good linebackers, and they sent those linebackers on blitzes a lot, and they were still able to beat them. So again, for them to not only give Jordan time to throw, which they did, and the ability for the receivers to win their one-on-ones, that is a really, really encouraging sign if you're a Packer fan, right? Now, again, the yardage did not jump out, but they scored 27 points against what I still consider a very good defense. Again, the defensive line, you can say what you want about that. I just did for, 2 minutes there. I still think they're massively overrated. I do think Aiden Hutchinson will play better later this season when they play them on Thanksgiving. I guarantee you guys he's going to have more of an impact regardless. Yardage didn't jump out, right? But I thought they played really, really well in this game, the Packers offense. Now, switching over to the defensive side, this is where I thought, they played insanely well. I mentioned it in the preview, how important it would be for the Packers to stop the run. That's the first thing I said, right? Boy, oh boy, did they ever stop the run. I'm going to read these numbers for you guys. I double-checked them, triple-checked them. It's real. It matches the eye test. The Packers held the Lions to 46 yards rushing on 19 attempts. That's crazy. They had 9 tackles for loss in this game. 9 tackles for loss. That's insane. Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker combined for 3 TFLs. Colby Wooden had 2. Rashawn Gary and Devontae Wyatt all had 1. LVN as well. There was a nasty, nasty effort in this one against the Lions run game. They dominated the line of scrimmage the entire game. They forced Detroit to throw the ball 39 times. And like I said in the preview, not to keep referencing the preview, right? But I do feel like I was vindicated on some of these. Jared Goff, you had to make him beat you. And you had to make him throw it 40-plus times. He ended up throwing 39, so I was close. He basically was just the check down king this entire game. In fact, Jahmyr Gibbs had 10 catches for 30 yards, which is, again, crazy. I saw it somewhere. It was one of the most weird stat lines I've ever seen, and I believe it was one of the lowest yardage outputs for 10 catches ever. So, again, this guy, guys, Jahmyr Gibbs, is, in my opinion, a top 3 running back in the game. Excuse me. He can take it to the house on any given play. And they completely shut him down. Apologies, guys, for the alarm. I still am just blown away that they were able to do this. Now, again, we heard all week from pundits, we heard from national folks all over talking about how concerning it was that, they gave away Kenny Clark, they can't stop the run. I do think, and I'll admit, I thought they would do a lot better against the Packers' run defense than that, but they came in and they absolutely dominated the line of scrimmage. The other key to the game we talked about, pressure Jared Goff. He's a completely different quarterback when he's under pressure. And boy, oh boy, did they pressure Jared Goff. When I get to the numbers in a second, I'll blow your mind, right? Even when Micah Parsons wasn't on the field, when he was off the field, Jared Goff never had time to throw. And they barely blitzed. Guys, they barely even blitzed. They got pressure with 4 this entire game. They sacked Jared Goff 4 times, and they had 19 pressures. 19 pressures. Absolutely insane, guys. Rashawn Gary had 5 pressures. That was actually more than I expected. And again, Rashawn Gary was against the 2 tackles. Taylor Decker is a really, really, really good left tackle, and he had 5 pressures. LVN had 4. Micah Parsons had 2 from PFF. I thought he had more than that. I think he actually had like 3 or 4, but whatever. Devontae Wyatt had 4. Carl Brooks had 2. Edgerrin Cooper and Colby Wooden both had 1. So again, just an insane amount of pressures in this game. Jared Goff had 5 yards per passing attempt. So again, you can just go back and watch the game. All he did was check the ball down the whole game. And again, I want to be clear, right? This cornerback room has gotten a lot of crap. And myself included, I've been a little bit weary of their cornerback group. But there's been a ton of consternation out there about how bad these corners were, and the national pundits are worried about corner. And Jair, how dare you get rid of Jair, who, by the way, completely gave up that game last night against the Ravens, LOL. They were able to cover up the back end all day long. Jared had nowhere to throw the ball, guys. Go back and watch the game. Watch the All-22. Do yourselves a favor. Jared Goff had nowhere to throw the ball. So even though he got pressured like crazy, right, and he was forced to dump the ball off, there were a ton of plays where there was nowhere to throw. So again, that was a crazy, crazy game from the Packers defensive line. They got a ton of pressure all game long. I'll add one more thing in quick before we move on. Excuse me. Every single time that there was a completed pass or a run got outside, it felt like there were 9 people there at the ball ready to hit them. There was swarming to the ball all day long. And more importantly, guys, this is a fast defense. I was texting my cousin during the game. This has to be the fastest defense in the NFL. It's definitely the fastest defense the Packers have had in my lifetime. I don't know. Maybe in the 96 team, they were really fast too. I don't want to sit here and pretend like I know all about that, because I don't. But we have to talk about it, right? This is a insanely fast defense. And, we hear all the time about how the Packers, they only draft athletes and they only draft people that have high RAS scores and blah, 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 right? And I've had some issue with that as well, right? That's why they passed on Brian Branch, the Lions Brian Branch. By the way, he got flagged for taking Tucker Kraft's helmet off, LOL. So again, this is the product of drafting athletes, right, that can play football. It's not just athletes. It's athletes who can play football. They completely flew around the field the entire game. Again, there were a couple catches that Jahmyr Gibbs had. I think there were a few even that the other receivers had where it looked like there was a lot of room there that they could pick up a gain. All of a sudden, Edgerrin Cooper came in and stopped it, or Xavier McKinney came in and stopped it, right? This is a fast team. I've never seen anything like this in my life. Really quick, I want to touch on special teams before we wrap it up. I don't know anything about special teams. I just know the basics, right? But I can't tell you how much of a relief it was. I can't be alone in this, right? To not be sweating when the ball's kicked off or when it's punted or when the field goal unit comes on, right? They finally have some stability in special teams, right? The kick coverage and punt coverage was really, really fun in this game. They really did play well on special teams. They rallied to the ball on kickoff and punt coverage. Like I said, Nick Neiman, number 31, there was that punt that Daniel Whelan had, which we'll get to in a second, where he flies down and tackles the guy. I think he only gained like 7 yards on the return because Nick Neiman came down with his head on fire and stopped the Lions guy. He had 4 tackles on coverage units, which is crazy. So again, Nick Neiman played well in this game. Unfortunately, Bo Melton did get hurt in this game, and he's typically their best gunner. So we'll see how serious that injury is. Daniel Whelan punted insanely well. Again, I talked about punting, I think at one of the preseason breakdowns, how good he punted in that game. He had a 66-yard punt in this game in the second half, completely flipped the field on that one. Had a couple other good punts too, pinned him in the 20, I think it was twice. And then Brandon McManus made all of his field goals. And he's on my fantasy team, by the way. So thank you for getting me to the dub in my fantasy league this week. Contrast this opener to last season against the Eagles when they had Braden Narveson, right? I think Narveson missed 2 field goals and an extra point in that first game against the Eagles. Now, if they had Brandon McManus last year against the Eagles in that first game in Brazil, maybe they win that one, right? So again, just quickly, I don't know much about special teams, but you got to be encouraged with what we saw in that as well. In conclusion, I should have brought this up at the beginning, right? You guys know I picked the Lions to win this game, 23-21. I'm going to always, this entire season, guys, be as objective as I possibly can when I'm picking these games. I don't want to just be a homer where I pick them every time. That's boring. But I truly thought the lack of practice for the Packers, more important players, Xavier McKinney, Jordan Love, we talked about it, right? I thought that would make this team a bit sluggish, but my God, was I wrong. And I will never and have never been happier to be wrong in my life. I know it's week 1 too. I said it in the prediction episode too. No matter what happens in this game, let's not get too high or to get too low. But the way that they won in this game has to have us excited, right? What it is a proof of concept of what they can do when they play well on both sides of the ball and really just play complementary football, right? The scariest part, though, this defense is going to look better and better as we go, right? I do think the offense as well. We'll get to that in a second. This was what they do with Micah Parsons at 70% of his best, right? He only played 29 snaps, 46% of the snaps. This is without their best cornerback, Nate Hobbs, who, in my opinion, again, I think he's going to have a big season. You guys also heard my bold prediction. He's going to have a better year than Jair, which that prediction's looking pretty good too, by the way, because Jair looked terrible yesterday. They did all this against a really, really good offense. Make no mistake about it. This Lions offense is going to be top 10 at the end of the season. I'm not worried about them at all. They're still going to be a major threat. And on offense, right, they barely ran the ball today. They could barely run the ball. They still put up 27 points against a really, really good defense. That was a B performance on offense that resulted in 27 points. I would say that first quarter they played A offense, right? Grade A, sorry, not A. We've seen, and I think we will see, a better version of this offense as we go. I don't know why I didn't record a predictions episode. I might just do one at some point, just even though the games would have already started, right, to kind of pick their record for the year. But I kind of had them at 10 or 11 wins, right? So the same, maybe a bit less than last season, but I do think that the year was going to end up where they would be playing their best football late and they would be a better team than they were last season. Then the Micah Parsons trade happened. I thought they might be 12, 13 wins. After seeing this game, I think they're going to be favored in every game this season outside of maybe that Eagles game. And we'll see. Again, things change like the wind. There might be some of those teams on their schedule that are way better than they are right now or whatever, right? But I wouldn't be surprised, if they win more than that, maybe in that 13 to 14 win range. So we'll see, right? Things, again, this is week 1. I don't want to overreact, but I just overreacted for 30 minutes, however long we've been on this already. Coming up this week, we have the Thursday night game against the Commanders. They're coming to Lambeau Field. Definitely some concerning injuries to keep an eye on this week. Aaron Banks and Zach Tom both left the game with injury. I don't know if they're super serious or not. My guess is neither of them are going to play this week. That's going to make Darian Kennard again play right tackle. I think Jordan Morgan will play left guard. And again, you guys heard the PFF grade. I thought he played well in this one. The Commanders are an interesting team. I also almost recorded a bold predictions episode for the NFL. I'm going to do some NFL takes as well in this podcast because I just love the NFL in general. One of my takes was that the Giants would finish with a better record than the Commanders. I think Russell Wilson's why the Giants lost that first game. I think they actually played pretty good on defense that game. But it didn't age well. We'll say that. I do think the Commanders are a bit overrated. I think they kind of have to rely on Jaden Daniels being, generationally good at quarterback. And I do think he is, by the way. I do think the Packers, they're going to be able to score on the Commanders. I do think that if they can contain Jaden Daniels in the pocket, slow down their offense, I do think that they can actually win that game. I think they're going to win that game. We'll talk about that this week. Before I wrap up, I always say at the end of these podcasts, and the offer stands, by the way, you guys can send me questions whenever you have them. I did get a question this week I wanted to answer from my boy Brad up in Winona. Went to college together, Brad. Appreciate the question, man. I got the question. The question is, Packers, will they extend Romeo Doubs after this season? This is an interesting question. And these ones, by the way, I have notes that I take on these. I'm just going to answer these kind of as if we were talking at a bar together, right? I do think that it's less likely that the Packers will re-sign Romeo Doubs after they drafted Savion Williams and Matthew Golden, right? So I'm going to give you the reasons they could sign him and the reasons they wouldn't sign him. We'll start with why they wouldn't. I think the reason they wouldn't is because they're going to have to pay him a pretty good chunk of change, right? You saw what Jamison Williams got. You guys saw what Khalil Shakir got from the Bills. It's going to be that $20 million to $25 million a year range, especially if he has a really good season this year, right? I just don't know that they're going to want to pay that when they still have Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Savion Williams, Matthew Golden, all under contract next season, right? Christian Watson, I think, is actually more likely to be re-signed because of what he can do to open up the deep passing game, but we'll talk about that when the time comes. So I do think that they're going to have to pay him a pretty good chunk of change, and I don't know that they can't replace his skill set with the guys they have. The reason that they might re-sign him, though, is because he and Jordan have a really, really good rapport. I think he's probably the most reliable guy they have when it's like, hey, you need to get a third down. You're going to look to Romeo Doubs, similar to the way that they did with Devontae Adams when he was here. Now, again, obviously lesser effectiveness, right? But we saw in camp this year, we saw in this first game that Romeo is a really, really good receiver. I don't think he's a number one receiver. Now, granted, I could be wrong on that. I think there's a good chance he comes out this season and leads them in receiving. I think there's a good chance, and the chances have increased, by the way, because of what happened in camp and because of Romeo's rapport with Jordan, that they do re-sign him. Now, what they would probably do is sign him to a 3-4 year deal, and they would probably make it incentive-laden. Will he sign that deal? I'm not sure. But I do think that they're coming into this before camp, coming into this year, I thought there was probably a 5% chance they brought Romeo back. I think it's probably like a 30% chance now. And you heard the way that Matt LaFleur glazed over Romeo Doubs when he was interviewed after camp, right? He's clearly very important to this offense, and I do think that there's a chance that they bring him back. Now, the only way they bring him back, though, is if he leads this team in receiving. I think it's very hard at that point. If he has 1,000 yards this year, 9 touchdowns, 80 catches, whatever, he leads the team in receiving, he breaks out, and they just let him walk. I don't know if that's going to happen, right? They're not going to be able to pay Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, and Romeo Doubs, right? They're going to have to pick and choose. They still have Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks after this season. Like I said, if I had to pick right now, I think it's a 40% chance he's back, 60% chance he's not. But we shall see. It's a fantastic question. We're gonna find out this season. I think if he balls out like he did this first game, I think the chances might sway a bit more. I'll be back on Wednesday night to preview the Commanders game. I'll probably record Wednesday night, drop it early on Thursday for you guys to listen to. Depends on how it works with work. I cannot wait for this game. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. Follow the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get the YouTube channel up a bit. If you guys can do that, that would be massively appreciated. I said previously I'm going to upload video in the coming weeks for every episode. I just created a Twitter account. So if you guys can go on there and follow me, I'd be really, really grateful if you did. I'm kind of posting Packers content only on there, throwing my takes on there. It's at Titletown Talk PC. It's, again, at Titletown Talk PC for podcast. So give me a follow on there. Send me some questions. Massively fun first week. I can't wait to do this again next week, guys. I appreciate you listening. Give me a 5-star review. Tell your friends, tell your family, and go Pack Go.